What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. I first picked up the Arkham games in my 20s, believe it or not, but before then, I'd been a Batman fan and been able to, in my opinion, consume whatever form of Batman media that was interesting to me at the time, especially at a young age. I remember watching the 90s animation series with, the world's Batman, Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill basically playing Joker in that, and a lot of the cast as well. This was a very pivotal time to be a fan in the Batman verse. There's no doubt about that. However, with everything Batman, the commercial nature of the character, and for the most part, the movies being, in a sense, all over the place, I think something that really took Batman and put in a whole different realm and established it to the quality and the, I would say, weight that the character holds was the Arkham games. The Arkham games basically took that character that had already held down the animated market and then took, that same idea and put it in the video game space. Think about it. The cast that even played in, the main cast in the animated series were basically put in the position to actually do the Arkham games. And I think that transference really did resonate well, because now they could easily take hold of those Batman fans from their youth and then easily put them in their, in their development in terms of age and in terms of, moving away from maybe watching the series into their video games. So there's a very interesting DNA that the Arkham games have other than just the gameplay. I know a lot of people are really, fascinated by the gameplay and all of that. Yes, but you basically heard the same Batman that you heard when you were a kid while you were playing the game as a teenager or even as a grown adult. I was in my 20s when I was playing the Arkham games. And to me, I kept wondering, how does this Batman sound like the Batman that is my favorite Batman? And then going later to do the research and finding out that it was Kevin Conroy who had played that Batman and also was playing the Batman in the Arkham games. So this kind of really core DNA of, the Batman games and the DC games, in my opinion, are missing right now. Now, Warner Brothers is making some other hits. They made Hogwarts Legacy, but the difference, though, is J.K. Rowling is still here and still owns a majority of what goes on with her Harry Potter world and universe. So it's very difficult to ruin and destroy it because you're putting it in the hands of people who have not sweat yet in terms of the creative enterprise and who don't value it. I see in today's day and age that, from what I'm taking into account, that a lot of the creatives out here don't necessarily have what I think is the reverence or the urgency or, that level of awe that we, the fans, have in terms of when it comes to making and creating these games. It's actually very, it's a very unique position to be in, to find somebody who has that kind of awe, respect, and fandom that will find themselves in a creative position that can make decisions. One example is Peter Jackson and The Lord of the Rings, the way he basically looked at The Lord of the Rings and stuck with, as good as he could with the story in terms of bringing it to screenplay. All of these things are very interesting. Like, say, maybe even thinking about Jon Favreau, who's, a nerd, seeing him make some really heavy hits with the Star Wars, Clone Wars animated series for the long time. He and Dave Filoni, I think they did those seasons, and those are some of the best, Star Wars representations that you can get in terms of expanding the lore from a, motion, I would say TV perspective. So this is something that I think in the DC fan base, we're just missing. And it's starting to show. Even on the Marvel side, it's not necessarily so cut and dry. So what are we left with? As a community of DC fans, we're left with basically corporate people calling the shots. I think we've come to the point where we, the nerds, we, the, people who enjoy these characters, now have to actually step in and start to create our own worlds, create our own universes, and basically reinvigorate and at least recapture the spirit that birthed the characters like Batman and Superman and the Flash and the Green Lantern. I think the nerds, the creative ones anyways, need to start to jump into this process. And to be very honest, it's not going to be very easy, because it seems like, number one, the scales are already weighted against everyone. But the reality is, with the scales weighted in the way that they are, there are also things that are in our favor as DC fan communities. And one of those things I've been talking about for a very long time, and I wish to actually leverage in, say, this particular community. So I came to this community just wanting to cover, Arkham games. I just basically left, my YouTube channel that was doing very well with the Division content. All of my peers have passed me in subscribers and in growth and all that. But that was not necessarily important to me. What was important to me was, the fan base and being able to pretty much capture what I think is that spirit of, the fandom that we shared as, DC fans with Batman and Superman and so on and so forth, right? So I decided, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hop in here and I'm going to start giving my opinions and I'm going to join the conversation and I'm going to start talking about this stuff. And it was very rewarding to do. To be very honest, ladies and gentlemen, I was elated to see how much people were very excited about stuff like this, at the end of the day. So when it came down to it, to be very honest, I decided that I was going to pretty much learn how to make video games. But seeing how this deficit is here, I'm looking for ways to be able to close this gap with my own creative works. And so this has led me down a path of learning game development for the last few years. It's been a very interesting journey because the moment I started learning game development, I started to learn the difficulty in game development. I started to learn like all of the, hitches and the glitches and the troubles and the challenges. But one thing I kind of learned was, game development is one of those things where it is actually a team effort. Not one person makes a video game successful. Not one person can make a video game successful. That's just the reality, right? What you need is a community and you need a lot of people that can actually get the job done. And so you not only need the technical people, you also need writers. You also need a community who can rally around that particular IP and that particular product. So what I'm doing in this regard is I want to make a game about a hero. Whether it's a superhero or not a superhero, that's something that's yet to be determined. And I'm working very hard to actually achieve this. I've put together a team of folk that are very adept at what they do, and we're building. It's not time to show anything yet. So what I have here is, some footage just to hold you off of Unreal Engine 4 stuff that I was playing with a few years ago. If you look at the date on the bottom right corner, it's April of 2021 at 10 a.m. I'm basically messing around and I'm just capturing my footage. And this was a very interesting time. This was the beginning when I started learning how to actually manipulate the engine, manipulate all kinds of different parameters. I was just in the learning phase, and I'm still in the learning phase. But I want to make a video game that appeals to the audience of people. It's not going to be DC, obviously. It's going to be a little universe that I'm creating for the fans and the audiences. And by the way, I have a Discord server. The link is in the description. I'll be bringing some updates to the Discord server so that you guys who are interested in, following the project can eventually do so. So hop on the Discord server and, when the time is right, you will be the first to know as to how things are going. And as I'm, dealing with this character and writing this character, I'm surprised that, he is in stark contrast to what you would see today, but he's very similar to what we've always had when we were growing up in the superhero space or in the hero space, right? And this has been very interesting overall to see how long or how much the fandom has been deprived of what I think is stories or experiences that just resonate with them. This is not a matter of quality, because if it's a matter, quality can be achieved from a visual perspective, from an art perspective, but that's that part of thinking about, how in the world are we going to basically go ahead and achieve all of this stuff, and put it all together. It's interesting to just see this deficit that's there in the gaming space. And so I'm calling on you guys that are creatives to start to putting the work and start to basically put your dreams, to paper and pencil and whatever it is you want to do, or to game development. Some of you are learning game development and such, and just not back down, because the audience is here and they're ready to be able to engage in this particular aspect of things. So that's pretty much what I'm doing, So hopefully very soon, I'll be able to show you a little bit of my work. I'll be able to show you a little bit of what it is that I'm cooking or we're cooking because, this stuff is actually really interesting. It's really fun to be able to go back and, take a look at all this stuff overall. But the beauty of it is, if is something that is appealing to the fans, I think it may eventually start to, change the entire conversation and the paradigm when it comes to how all of these things work. So let me get out of your hair. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. And hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.